I didn't strategically place anything. I'm just out of my office because we haven't got the fire on down there. It's too cold. Right. Hello, everybody.
Hi.
I think we've got all our questions, people. Everyone that's posed a question is on the call, which is absolutely fantastic. So, right, well, good to see you all and welcome back. I hope you all enjoyed the National a few weeks ago. I think there was a lot of good information in there and a lot going on, and your heads were probably spinning for a while after that, but all good stuff. So this is the first call that we've had since November, actually, because we didn't have one in December and obviously January because of the workshop. So we got some good questions here. So without going on anymore, I'm going to start now so that we can get through them. I'm going to start, as Paul was the first one to pose this question, I'm going to go his first. Now, if you just bear with me, what I'm just going to do is to share my screen. And hopefully you can see a picture of a property on there, which is Paul's property. Yep. Okay, Paul, are you able to ask your question, or do you want me to?
Yes, certainly.
So you're there. Do you want me to ask your question?
Can you hear me all right, Kim?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm in the car. Obviously, Fred's driving, so I can do this. Yeah, so that's our house. We are thinking of putting in en suites on the right-hand end of the house. And the question was, are we allowed to put the soil pipes for a future toilet on the outside of the house? I've drawn it in red. And my theory was that the roof is about 30 centimetres bigger than the house. So am I allowed to have a soil pipe either upstairs or downstairs sticking outside the outside of the house? That's a public pavement by the side of the house.
Yeah. Okay, so to answer your question, if you owned that land, the answer would be yes. So if, you know, it depends where your boundary is, and I'm just guessing here because obviously this is an existing HMO that you purchased and it was extended, wasn't it, prior to you buying it? So if we can see here where we've had this big full height extension, so that's almost doubled, hasn't it, the size of the property where the extension was completed. And when they completed the extension, they sort of pushed the boundaries a little bit by, it looks like, building right on that party wall line, which will often happen when you're actually subsiding onto a street. So I think what you first need to do is to go back to the land registry just to check, and I think the answer is going to be is the boundary is literally where that outside wall is. Okay. I'm going to answer this question based on if this was hanging over your neighbour's land. All right, because I think that is relevant, and then we'll go back to, you know, your issue here. If you're normally, what would happen is that you wouldn't have your roof line overhanging your neighbours. So whilst in theory you sort of own that land that would be above or underneath your roof, that would only be if that roof, or the edge of that roof, is actually the edge of your land. So if you are hanging over your neighbour, or in this case hanging over the pavement, so that will be highways land, you would actually be building. So if you put your soil pipes on the side of the house, or if you actually hung anything out there, so your boiler flue or anything like that, you would actually be trespassing on whoever's land that is. So that would be highways. Okay, so that's the sort of like the legal position of it, and looking at it from a legal perspective. Now, I think if we also look at it from the practical perspective, because I'm telling you from a legal point of view, the next question would be, would anybody notice? Okay. You may have a neighbour that's quite into making sure what's going on in the neighbourhood, and would therefore sort of like report you if you did put a soil pipe on that side, in which case you may be asked to sort of remove it. And I think from a practical point of view, if we're looking at on the ground floor, is you're just going to get people picking it and treading on it and breaking it, in which case you'll end up with sewage flowing all over the street. So if this was further, if this extension had been built inside the party wall line, or inside that party wall line with the pavement, I would say yes, you could do it, as long as those soil pipes were then on your land. And then practically at that ground floor level, I'd be putting a fence or something up there so that nobody could tread on it or trip over it and sue you for the fact that you've got something there that's a danger to them. Obviously, the upstairs pipe would then be less of an issue. So I think, Paul, on this one, you're going to have to look for an alternative that brings those pipes internally, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's fine. Thank you, Kim. I've been there today actually decorating, and the joists run front to back, so it's not as difficult as I thought. So that's a relief.
Good.
I've got a subsequent question, Kim. I'm sorry. I know there's lots of questions that are probably far more interesting. Can I vent a fan out that way?
Okay. In theory,
it won't stick out.
Yeah, in theory, the same principle applies, but I don't think anybody's going to.
Yeah, it'll be quite high. It's just blowing warm air, I suppose. Okay.
As long as I just stick an egg crate vent on it. You know the egg crate with holes in. Just stick an egg crate vent on there. You'll see that on the sides of lots of properties. So as long as it's not sticking out, then I think the answer is you'll get away with that. People say like a boiler flue, and I've seen boiler flues sticking out over pavements, just around about at head height or whatever. And I mean, in theory, you shouldn't be doing it. Is the answer.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Right, Paul. Okay, thank you very much. Right, Gemma. So Gemma's was the next question. So I'm going to do all these in order.
Can I just make one comment about the soil pipe?
Oh, please do.
If you take it inside and have to box it in, I would say consider boxing it in using the marine plyboard, the aqua boards. You get a very nice finish, and if people put their soaps or wet shampoos on it, it doesn't damage. Put them on with screws so you can take it off if you ever get a blockage and need to get at the pans and things. And it's watertight, looks good, and it's accessible. If you tile it all in, tiles don't last forever, and also it's a bloody nightmare if you have to get to it.
Absolutely. Thank you, Andrew. And don't forget to insulate it as well if it's going through a bedroom. Thank you. Okay, Gemma. So, right, now I'm going to go on here. I'm probably going to get the wrong one first because I've got lots of things open. Right, this is Gemma's house that she's looking at, isn't it? It's one you're looking at purchasing.
Yeah, potentially.
Potentially. So, I'll go on to the layout. Let's go and find your layout for you. Wrong one. Always wait. Wrong one. It's going to be the last one. It's going to be the last one I get to. There we are. And it would be. So that is your proposed layout, isn't it? So do you want to go through your questions?
Yeah. So I've tried to keep it as simple as possible, really. Adding on an ensuite, which I know others have done, and it shouldn't be any problem at all. Just extending this bedroom 3 up here, so it's a nicer size. Keeping the kitchen where it is, really, to try and keep costs low. Having this as a utility room where hopefully the plumbing can come straight back through the kitchen. Having a shower room added that bed 4 and 5 can share, and having a lounge area. Now, my issue with this is that although the house is on the cheaper side for this area, we know we're not going to get any uplift or very little uplift. I've spoken to the estate agents and about what I was potentially looking at doing and the uplift, and they're not convinced I'm going to get more than 25k uplift. The house was built between 95 and 99. So I suppose the first question was on the electrics, because the electrics seem to cost about 15,000 to redo all the electrics. And I'm just trying to understand, do I need to redo the electrics when the house isn't, well, 25 years old? Is there like a time scale after which you think, right, you definitely need to do the electrics? Because the electrics and the plumbing are 2 biggest costs that I'm going to have. I'm just trying to work out how I can do this as kind of a cheaper refurb, because otherwise the costs just don't don't work out.
Okay, right. Let's cover the electrics first, and then I'll go on to the layout after that. I mean, as far as the electrics goes, you don't necessarily always need to rewire. It does depend, or do a full rewire. It does really depend on what the situation is with the current wiring and how much you're adding. There are some builders that some franchise partners use, who, as a matter of course, and they tend to be, I will state here, they tend to be the Eastern European ones, okay, who will not guarantee their work unless they do a full rewire. So they're just going to strip, regardless what you want, they will just be stripping the whole lot out. They were rewiring, replumbing, plastering the whole lot, okay, and that's why some of the refurbs are becoming quite expensive if you use those builders. Now, there will be other builders that will look at things sensibly. I mean, there's a likelihood, unless the consumer unit has been, so the fuse board has been upgraded at some stage during the, you know, the time the house has been in existence, that it's still an existing one. So it's likely now, especially with the change of regs with RCDs and things like that for HMOs, that you're going to have to upgrade that, especially if you're adding to the unit. But that doesn't, you know, add into the number of sockets that you've got, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to need a full rewire. A partial rewire might, you know, might be okay. All right. But I can't answer that. I can't see your wiring. You're going to have to get your electrician to look at it. Okay. Now, I get where you're coming from in wanting to sort of keep your costs down here. Just before we go on to the layout, what sizes, do you remember off the top of your head, sort of what size requirements you've got as far as kitchen and stuff with, because it's West Berkshire, isn't it, this property is in?
Yeah, I think I should be okay with that kitchen side if I keep the utility and lounge separate.
Yeah, because it's, have they, when you had the HMO officer, has the HMO officer seen the current property that you've got, or have they commented?
Goes into an ether and you hear nothing.
Right, okay then.
Yeah, they're not interested in coming out, then no engagement whatsoever.
Because they haven't got any prescribed standards for the size of your lounge or anything, have they? They just say 7 square meters for a kitchen, which is
yeah, I think in total it's meant to be 20 square meters for
right.
kind of kitchen lounge area. So with that lounge area, it should be fine.
Okay, that's great. Now we've got one big problem with this layout, the way that it is at the moment, and that is your stairs. Where your stairs, because your stairs go up through the lounge.
Yeah, so I did look at where I've got potentially the utility room. I did look at swapping that and having the stairs going up, which would also make bedroom 3 a nicer size. I was just worried about cost, Kim. It just, each time I keep thinking of a different thing, I keep thinking it's just another cost, which means that it doesn't work. Yeah,
I understand that. But what you've got is the issue that you have is the lounge is still counted as a high risk room. Okay.
Oh, is it? Okay.
So you wouldn't be able to have, I mean, I have had a strong discussion several years ago with a fire officer up in the middle of the coast. It's Northamptonshire, actually. I remember it was a very nice gentleman. Because the property we were looking at, when I get there, I find, oh dear, the stairs are actually coming down into the living room. With that particular property, we were able to make another door out of the property on the side because it was a semi-detached. So that meant we could take those stairs, you know, people coming down the stairs could then escape out to the side of the property. But with this one, because it is terraced, you can't do that. And
what's high risk about a lounge?
It's because it's where people commune. So kitchen and living room. I mean, I agree with you. You know, it's, well, what is high risk? It's an area where they commune. So for the purposes of being an HMO, HMO officers and fire officers still see that as being a high risk area.
I think it's a bit of a historical thing, because people would sit in the lounge watching television with their cigarette or their pipe, fall asleep on the sofa and burn themselves to death. I mean, you can argue blue in your face now that they're non-smoking, people don't do that anymore, but the rules say a lounge is high risk.
Yeah, and if I just quote because I bought an existing HMO in Bristol, which did not have, it's got a separate kitchen and a separate living room. Ironically, it had a fire door going into the kitchen, but going out the back of the kitchen into a lobby which went to 2 bedrooms. It had a planed glass door, you know, the little plain glass. So that was not a fire door, and the lounge had a standard door. I like to test HMO officers, so I use my licensing visit to test my HMO officer, because Bristol are quite lax on their standards as well. They don't actually ask for a complete protected escape route on a 2-storey property. Now, ironically with this, they asked me to put a fire door on the lounge, but he said nothing about the door that went out the kitchen, the other side to where 2 bedrooms were. I mean, those bedrooms did have an escape route out of a back door, but I still should be a fire door because they would have to go through that hallway to get out. So what I'm getting at here is there are different approaches from HMO officers. However, the standard should really be that you'd be looking at a protected escape route. So I'm glad you said about moving your stairs, because you're absolutely right. This will add cost. But if we just go down now to this little picture, which I think was probably what you were thinking. So basically, the stairs would come up. You can bring your stairs up here. Now, the only concern I've got is this is going to take space out of your kitchen. But if we look at the plan, this is going to be where the end of your kitchen is. Okay, this line here. So for the stairs to come up into this hallway, all right, I think you're going to be taking a little bit of this wall. It's going to be coming out across the wall. It would need to be measured, because bear in mind that all I'm doing is working from the estate agent plan, which is never accurate necessarily. So maybe you may be lucky in the stairs being able to go over here, in which case this would work really nicely. And it might be that the stairs need to kite round. But what we need to keep in mind is that you will need to move this door for this communal shower room, yeah, because you'll need the head height as they come up the stairs here before it kites round, okay? So how you could work it, because you had it on yours, just put your ensuite here. So all I'm doing is literally splitting it the other way across, and looking at everything. Your soil pipe is over in this corner here. So provided this is going to be, are your joists running in the right direction? So if your joists are running in the right direction, be able to put your toilet there, you'll be able to pull your soil pipe through here, and it goes down through into the kitchen. Okay, and my reason for putting the soil pipe here, because you're looking at putting an ensuite, aren't you, at the back of, or a shower room at the back here, aren't you, to share between these two? But I think looking at the picture, it looks like there's possibly a manhole here.
Yeah.
So you're going to need to get that up, because it might be easier just to bring your soil out of your garage directly into here, rather than trying to get it internally into that one. Let's see if I pick the right one. Wait, pick the right one. So that's my thoughts, but obviously that's going to add to cost and does impact your potentially your kitchen size. I mean, kitchen, they say you need 7 square meters. You've got to be, I think it's about 8.4. So it depends on how much this is going to take out. Andrew, any other thoughts? Did you want to add anything, or?
Yeah, where are your gas meter and electricity meters?
I don't know on this one. I've literally looked at one that is literally very similar to this a few doors down the line. I think it's outside the kitchen.
That'd be great, because my worry with a house of this age, they could well be in the garage.
Yeah.
Okay.
But obviously, if they're in the garage and you're taking to a bedroom, you'll need to move them out, which again is probably a couple of £1,000 cost.
Nothing showing. I can't see anything on the front here, so that's something for you to check, Gemma. So, you know, you're probably, I mean, it depends on how much structural work here, but you could be talking for a couple of grand for this as well. because obviously Joyce, I mean, what it does do is make this, you get your bedroom back, so that means that then you don't need to move that wall at all. Because that's over, I think I worked that out, about 7.0, you know, just over 7 square meters. So unless you wanted to make that bigger, that should be enough, yeah, still enough for a very small double, but it's a small double basically. Okay.
Okay, so yeah, I need to get a quote for the electric. Yeah, I think it's just going to be too expensive. I think that's the problem. It's just the refurb cost now. We looked at putting the extension on the back to make it more viable as a 6-bed, but the cost of an extension in our area, it just doesn't work now, with that being so high. So okay, I'll go back and look at the numbers. It's probably a no. Okay, can I ask one more question?
If it's a short one, yes.
So our refurb was interesting with our builders. So they didn't do the insulation that they should have done in the garage. So we got 2 rooms and an ensuite. We've got the hot and cold water pipes that are freezing. And I'm having to get a plumber out because they haven't done the appropriate lagging and they haven't done the correct insulation. And the rooms are a good 2 to 3 degrees cooler. So I'm having to check the temperature, and when the temperature looks like it's going to fall, have to keep the heating on at 18 or above overnight so that the pipes aren't freezing. I've spoken to Inspire, who have suggested individual thermostat for the room, although that's not necessarily going to help with the hot and cold water pipes. Any ideas? Where
are the hot and cold water pipes? Where are they situated within those rooms? Are they actually going through the rooms, or can you get to them? And when you say it hasn't been, I suppose if I take a step back here, when you say it hasn't been insulated properly, are you saying that they did not insulate those rooms to building reg standard?
I don't believe they did. I think, you know, the kind of foil board, they're one thickness, which I think is about 5 centimeters. They didn't follow the spec, which was for the bigger one. Building control aren't interested. They've not been interested on all the things on the project. The pipe work goes through the flat or underneath the flat roof and then down. And they were meant to put the insulation on the top of the roof, and they didn't. They did it underneath the roof, but it's literally 5 centimeters, and I think that's probably it.
Can you
lagging?
Can you get to the pipes
without taking the roof down?
Okay, because the only way you're going to get to the pipes to lag them is you know, they need to be lagged, and they shouldn't. You know, I've got a mega flow and boiler which are situated in a garage which is attached to a property. Okay. I'm sorry, attached to the property, so it was never converted. And whilst it's in a it's insulated, it's just literally got rock wool insulation on the ceiling and rock wool insulation just on the side. That's the some of the insulation, and that's just between the noggins and things like that. I don't have any issues with that freezing, but the pipes are also lagged, you know, just with the foam lagging. So realistically, somebody's going to need to get to that pipe work and lag it. And what is it? Is it a flat roof? What sort of roof have you got on it? Is it?
Yeah, it's flat roof.
What's it consist of? What's the topping on it? Is it just?
It's rubber on the top, but the pipes are between the ceiling and the joists, and then you got the roof on top. So they've done it internal to what was already there before. Right. So it was a garage, and they put it internal, the pipes, and then the roof is kind of on the top, and then they put the kind of boards underneath. Does that make sense?
It's likely to be cheaper to go in underneath than it is to go in over the top. And to be honest, you're not going to want to go in over the top and risk there being any sort of issues with the structural integrity and sort of water coming through. You know, if you know, do you know where those pipes run? Have you got pictures of where those pipes run when they were doing the refurb?
Not as detailed as I've got a good idea, but I would need to take the ceiling for both the lobby area and the ensuite out.
Yeah, so I mean, that's the only way I can think of getting to them. And it might be that, you know, if you've got the head height in that area, use that as an opportunity of putting a little bit more insulation in there. You know, if those rooms are cold, two ways of looking at it: you either stick another radiator in there or you improve the insulation.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Andrew,
Right,
any
yeah, so
other
You might
thoughts?
lag the pipes by actually just cutting a couple of holes at sort
Yeah.
of meter lengths and slotting in. And maybe as you're doing that, you could stuff some rock wool in as well above the insulated board. So it would
suppose,
sort of just
yeah.
increase the insulation around a bit. But you might not have to take the whole ceiling down. You might be just sort of post bits in through holes. So it's slightly less destructive.
Yeah, I think, yeah, the difficulty you got is just got to make sure, because if they've done it as a, you know, they've done it as the equivalent of a cold roof, then you need that ventilation going across above. So there should be some sort of ventilation above where you're, you know, where the insulation is and where the top of the roof is, so where the pipes are sitting. So just be careful you don't fill that gap up, because that should be a ventilation gap. Otherwise you'll end up with condensation up there.
Okay. All right,
There's
thank
stuff.
you. Don't ever use the builder we use. That's your key message there.
Yeah, okay.
Lovely. Thank you.
All right, answers.
Thank
Okay,
you. That's helpful.
right. Thank you very much, Gemma. And good luck with, if this one doesn't work, good luck with finding the next one. So, Simon and Heather. Let's go on to, so this is a picture of the property you just finished. It looks absolutely beautiful. Well done.
Thank you. It was one of those ones that took for, well, you took for bloody ever doing it. So it was well over a year to get this one sort of done, and he finished the patio, what, Monday? So,
At least it's finished.
yeah, indeed, yeah. But what, and it's tenanted, it's been tenanted for about the last 2-3 months as well. So, so we'll be getting the outside stuff finished off while they're in. But what we've noticed is that, basically, as you go towards the cooker on the floor, that almost like the last cupboard length, as it were, the floor then starts to drop down towards the rear of the property in that bit. Now, this bit of the floor was originally to have been an outbuilding or like an outside loo and things like that, but it had no proper floor in it at all. Literally, it was plywood over soil. So that side of the building was dug out. You know, the compacted hardcore, the concrete, the insulation, the screed on top, and so on. So it should have all gone through as is, you know, properly. But it's just starting to slope down, and it's noticeable when you're standing there, or we picked up on it. When you walk on it, you notice it, and it's about 4 mil off the 600 mil spirit level. It's about 4 mil at the end if you're holding the spirit level, as it were. Now we think was like it from the off, so we don't think it's going anywhere because there doesn't seem to be any movement on the units or anything like that. But we're just, like Gemma, we're trying to hold this builder to as much account as possible, and just looking at whether there's ways of rectifying it without having everything out.
Okay, question.
Yeah.
If you can just take a little bit of a step back, okay, is if you hadn't had problems with the builders, and I appreciate, you know, because I'm aware of some of the issues that you've had, because we've talked on that. Is this really a big problem? What's driving you to want to deal with this? You know, is it going to make any difference to your tenants living there? Are you worried about things rolling? I mean, nobody's going to be sitting down there playing marbles or anything like that, are they? So we don't need to worry about flat floor there for that. Are you concerned about what it looks like, what might happen in the future, or just the gap at the bottom of the kickboards, or what?
I think one is more about the future, just to make sure that, I mean, if it's not, if it's always been like it and it's not going to move, then it's not the end of the world, obviously, but it's just not ideal. If it is moving because he hasn't done it properly again, then we have a different set of problems, obviously, where we will need to get something rectified, and it's just looking at options for that, so we know what to, we say, price in what we actually do with the sorting of this out at the finals of contracts and things.
Have you taken the kickboards out just to check underneath the units to see, you know, if everything looks okay under there? You know,
Can't get them off because they've been wedged in, but I can have another go at getting them off.
Presumably the vinyl is that the sort of, you know, the board vinyl stuff on it?
Polyfloor, and it's all the way to the edges. So it was put in first before the kitchen went in.
Okay, so that creates a big problem, because I mean, to be honest, the only way you're going to level the floor off is by kickboards out, taking the vinyl up, hope that when you get underneath there that your legs on your units, is it a Howden's kitchen? So, you know, the legs sort of screw on and then they adjust those, don't they, depending on the height that you've got a little bit of space there, because I guess the units are straight, are they? It literally is definitely the floor. The units are perfectly straight. You've done them with the spirit level, have you?
I've done the units with spirit level,
yeah. So that's okay. So that's fine. So what they've done is they've just done everything to the floor. So basically, when they just did the floor to begin with, somebody didn't use their spirit level at the last minute when they were screeding it ready for the polyfloor to go on. So, you know, there's no easy way of doing this. You know, it's literally going to be the vinyl off, so the polyfloor off to the level of wear you need to go to. Screeding, I mean, you know, screeding can be done. They'd need to, if you've got a sort of, you know, 4 mil, because you said about 4 mil, did you? Yeah. 4 mil difference, you know, so you can get thick, you know, you can get heavy duty screed that will be able to do that sort of level. And I mean, once that's down, that's normally dry within about 3 or 4 hours, and then it will need to be, you know, when you put the vinyl back on top, you know, you can start doing that normally within about 24 hours. You know, my question would be, is it worth it? Just think of the hassle for the tenants and think, you know, everybody, is it going to make that much difference? You know, if you've got a concern about the gap between the kickboards and the floor, are you better off sort of running a silicone seal or something around there, you know, a see-through silicone seal, just to stop anything flowing under there? I mean, personally, I always like to be able to remove my kickboards.
Agreed,
because just, you know, it's the just in case.
Yeah.
You know, I've got a house where I occasionally get a mouse, you know, it's a Victorian terrace, I occasionally get a mouse. Mouse, where does mouse go? Mouse goes under the kickboards. I want to be able to remove those so I can see where Mousy has been, to deal with him, basically, Imper or whoever. But, you know, that's the other option if you've got any concerns about any spillages, because obviously, if, you know, if the floors are being washed and things like that, you know, could get water over there, under there. So what was your thoughts? Did you have, you know, is that what you thought you'd probably have to do?
Well, we've also got some of the floor sealing for the plastic that goes onto the bottom of the kickboards, but I just can't get it in at the moment because they wedged it in too tightly. So we need to sort of plane a bit off or cut a thin slither off to get that on.
Yeah, I mean, that's what, you know, that's your other option is doing something like that. I mean, they, you know, they do have a shelf life, those. I've got that in under my units in my utility room. Eventually that does degrade, but at least you can still remove the kickboards. You've got the situation maybe you can't even get kickboards off, can you? So you need to do that. But, you know, do you really feel you want to rectify that floor, or are you comfortable? Because it's difficult. We can see I can see where you're getting that, you know, that last cupboard, I can see a little bit of a gap in that picture at the bottom of the kickboards, but is it worth going to that degree to rectify it, or is it something you can live with?
If it doesn't change, we'll we'll live with it. I would think, you know, it's more that just see what options do we have if we don't if it gets worse. You know, that's correct.
Yeah, I think, you know, and obviously look at the outside, because how much of this area has been built on? Is it just literally that last bit through to here?
So it's about 6 foot. So it is about to the breakfast bar to the exterior wall on the left.
Right. Okay, then. So to there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
No, so the other left. So if you're facing left, as you're facing the cooker. So so from that's it. So from
about here.
Breakfast bar, that's the
Right. Okay.
the floor area.
Yeah. So, you know, have a look on the outside, because, you know, if there's movement there, you know, if it's going down, if there's movement there, you might see movement on the pointing of the bricks on the outside and things like that. I mean, that's the key thing to make sure. But presumably, you know, have you got pictures of the foundations? All the foundations were done. It wasn't built on a slab, wasn't just built on a slab, was it? They did big foundations for it in the first place. Yeah.
The house itself is also, you know, it was almost like an internal outbuilding. So the exterior walls are the original exterior walls still.
Okay.
But it looks like it used to be an outside loo but it was built into the building almost. So.
Okay, so what you're saying is they didn't actually do anything with the outside wall other than insulate it, presumably, because it was single skin. What they did was dug out the floor and they actually relaid the floor. Yeah,
correct.
Is that what you're saying? Right. Okay, then. So yeah, that's what you want to do. Is, you know, you're just going to need to check underneath the kickboards just to make sure that, you know, have a look. Has it dropped? My guess is they just didn't do it properly in the first place. You know, that's my guess. You know, is that they had a spirit level that was wonky on the day or didn't get used, basically. Did it with the eye. Okay.
So do we hold back the payment that we made on that floor?
That's entirely up to you whether you feel, you know, I mean, if it's not done to requirements, then you could argue, well, you know, it's not flat, is it? So that's what you would be expecting, is the fact that it is flat. So you could try to do that, you know, withhold some of the payments so that you've got something to rectify in the future if there is any problem. You know, I would be expecting a builder to provide you with a flat floor.
Yeah.
As you are expecting at the end of the day, but it's elements of, you know, how far you go with it, really.
So I mean, I think it would be fair to hold back what it would cost to rectify it. So if it's just a layer of the heavy duty screed and the time, that would be reasonable. Yeah,
I think that's reasonable, you know, but obviously you got your flooring as well, because once you pull that flooring up, you're going to be having to lay new flooring down, aren't you? You might get away, you're going to have to clean up those those planks if they do come up.
We've got because they he calculated that wrong as well.
Oh, okay. So you got lots of spare.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's a good thing then. So you've already got that. So that's less of a problem. So it's just going to be about the manpower to do that. You know, it's not an excessive amount of work. You know, you're probably talking about couple of days all told. You know, obviously first day it's going to be taking it all up, popping the screeding down, and then the next day coming along and putting the floor down. So a couple of days of their time maximum, and it wouldn't be a full day really. That's probably about half a day's work altogether.
Can that be done with units in situ?
Well, you're not going to get this is the issue, is, you know, how far does this go underneath and how far do you want to take it? Because if you want to take it to the wall, then that's going to be really difficult. That's something different. You know, if I was doing it, I'd be sitting there saying, and I was insisting on it being done, as long as it was flat to underneath where those kickboards are, I think that's probably a fair way of looking at it. But then what you've got to remember is the fact that you've got your poly floor all the way through to the walls, it does make a difference. So it depends on how much space you've got on the underneath of the legs to take those legs up, because you might be able to do that, you know, just take the legs up a bit and then run the screed underneath. It's not going to be an easy job, because it's somebody's going to be down on their hands and knees and laying on the floor trying to, you know, lean over, you know. But I mean, personally, if it was mine, if it wasn't an issue, then I'd just be trying to fill that gap up underneath the kickboards, as in it's not moving. I'd just be filling up the gap underneath the kickboards. And then the discussion is with the builder is turning around and saying withhold the payment, because I can't see that they're going to want to do it. You know, if you're happy to just say, you know, reduce the payment for the amount it's going to cost me to do that, then you can make your decision whether you bother or not.
Fine. Okay. Thank you.
Andrew, any other thoughts?
Just a couple of things. If you've got a raw edge of your plinth, or any raw edge, like a worktop that's been cut out for a sink and so on, a joiner trick that I was shown was run some clear silicone in it and just smear that round the raw edges, and so it soaks into the actual raw bits. And okay, it won't be totally waterproof, but it will preserve it a lot from accidental spills and things like that. So a bit of clear silicone rubbed into raw edges always helps. And the other trick is, if you've got leftover tiles and flooring, put them under the units behind the plinth.
Oh.
Rather than to put them in a cupboard or up in the loft and forget about them, pop the plinth off, push them underneath, put them in there. And then anybody who comes to do work on the kitchen usually will look under there and say, oh, good, here's some tiles.
Brilliant.
No,
Yeah.
that's great, because especially if you use a different flooring in each house, it's a case of where do you put it, and less room for the mices if you get them as well. Running around.
It's a
Thanks,
win-win.
Andrew. Absolutely great. Okay, and then you had, let's just close this down, you had another question, didn't you? Let me just get rid of that one. It's confusing. And this was in relation to this property. So do you want to go through what your question was?
Yeah, sure. So this is a 3-story modern townhouse, 2007. Nothing structural on a floor, on any of the floors. There are steels between the ground and first floor and the first and second floor. But what we want to do is, or what we need to do, is actually put a 300-litre mega flow in the loft, and possibly an accumulator up in the loft as well. We're still, do we upgrade the water supply or accumulator in there? But either way, there's quite a load going into the loft. So we've got a structural survey or a surveyor in to say, what do we need? So we've got two options. We can run the steels front to back, or we can put them side to side on the party walls. And they're saying that we only need to face fix it onto the party walls. We don't need to, put them into the party walls. And it was just a question of, do we need party wall agreement if we're face fixing something onto the party wall?
That's good. It's a good question, actually, very good question. So my question to you to begin with is, because I'm trying to save you money here,
Right.
is there nowhere else for that mega flow to go? Because I mean, you've got this, is this where your boiler's going to go now? Was this where you were going to put it, or?
No, that's restricted height, because you've got the headroom of the stair under it. So it had a 200-litre tank in there before, which went up to the ceiling.
Okay, so it's not going there because you can't, and you've got no space on the ground floor, because that's going to be the cheapest. That's going to be cheapest way to go.
No, it's really tight. We've only just squeezed 20 square meters for the lounge diner downstairs. We can't extend out the back because there's a communal drain running 1.5 meters away from the back of the house. So otherwise we could have put an extension out the back and made it a lot easier. But
Yeah.
But we couldn't do that either. So we're very tight on space on this one, all the way through.
So loft is best place for it, and then you've got to make sure, and there isn't. So you're not able to put it on a structural wall or anything? There isn't a structural wall up on that?
There are no structural walls at all.
Oh, okay. No, fair enough.
Sorry, everything is the metal dry line stud framed as well, so it's open timber.
Okay, that's fair enough, because that's what we'd always try to do if we're putting it in a loft. If you've got a structural wall up there, then at least by popping it above the structural wall, that means that that saves that issue as far as any extra structural requirements. Okay, so you've got the option on the left here, front to back, which you're safe with as far as not impacting anything as far as sort of party wall is concerned. Are you working towards that this is your preference because it's cheaper?
Correct. Yeah, and the structural surveyor actually prefers that one as well. I think everyone prefers that option if we can get away without the party wall agreement.
Yeah, okay. Well, I mean, if you're breaking into the party wall, then yes, you will need that. I'll be honest and say, and I'll say, Andrew, if you're just mounting on, what's your understanding?
Yeah, I think things like you're allowed to do things like cut socket boxes into party walls without getting a party wall agreement. So I'd have thought some big sort of wall fixings going into the wall. I mean, as long as they're not like 8 foot long fixings that go all the way, stick out in their house, I think you'd be okay. I mean, it might be courteous just to explain to the neighbours that you might hear a bit of drilling. We're fixing some beams in the wall on our side, just to sort of let them know. Or you might just think, oh, let's just get on with it. Depends on how well you get on with your neighbours. But I think you don't need a party wall agreement for this. But my thought looking at this is that's quite a big bathroom. Could you make that tank cupboard a little bit bigger and get 2 150s in there?
No, because of that actually this is slightly it's got a slightly older drawing here, but because of the way the window and the boxing goes there, in actual fact the shower needs to go on the wall next to where the old tank was.
So here.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we go, and there's a 900 quadrant going there. Just because of the way the other side of the room is, as it were.
Right.
There's
nothing you can sacrifice there.
Yeah.
It's a shame.
It's a shame, really, isn't it? Because as I say, it would be better if. But and I presume though the boiler's going up in the loft as well. Is that what the plan was, to pop everything up there? So you've got to board it in anyway. It's just a shame, but yeah, I think that makes, if you're going to go up in the loft, then that one makes more sense. That's going to be cheaper for you. And I wouldn't disagree with what you're saying there, Andrew. I've just not done that where you're fixing to it rather than fixing in, but I think that makes logical sense. And I would say, as Andrew said, have a chat with the neighbours, just to let them know, say that you're fixing something to it if they're okay. Have you met them yet? Are they?
On one side, we've already spoken on one side, they know noise and other things is going on, so, and they were fine. We've not been able, well, we're not sure there's anybody in the next house, in anybody other side at the moment, so.
Go for it then.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's better to beg for forgiveness rather than plead for permission.
Yeah. If anybody, you will get people that do fully understand party wall, and then you'll get a lot that don't. It's just they get annoyed by the noise, and that's it. And I've done in ignorance, I would say, before I sort of understood party wall. I've done damp proofing work where damp proofer has taken off sort of like 1.5 meters off the party wall without, for a damp proofing point of view. Neighbours didn't say anything at all. It must have been pretty noisy that morning, but there weren't any issues with it. And I mean, that should have been party wall. So, but as Andrew's saying here, and I agree there that I think we've probably been pretty safe with this one.
Thank you. Thank you.
Brilliant. Well, good luck with it.
Thank you.
Right. Okay. So on a Sunday.
Hello.
Right, let me just find your house. Let's get the right one first to begin with. That's it, isn't it?
That's it,
this is one that you're looking at, aren't you?
Yes, I'm going to look at it on Saturday.
Yeah, okay. Have you looked at it at all, or have you haven't looked at the actual property? You've just
No, I haven't. I'm going there on Saturday for the first time.
Okay, so I'll just flip over now. Let's see if I get the right one, which is
That's the one.
floor plan. That's the one. So what I've done is I've done two here because your picture was a bit wobbly, so
Yeah.
so that people could see the floor plan. So
Yeah.
this is ground floor layout, first
Yeah.
floor and
Yeah.
second floor. So
Yeah.
just standard townhouse that Andrew and I have seen lots of. Probably actually quite similar to Simon and Heather's original layout before they've started on theirs. So I'm just going to now, and I don't expect anybody to be able to read all the measurements on here, but this was the picture you sent through. So you want to ask your question, Ollerton, or your questions, and then we'll go through them.
Yes, I was trying to keep this as simple as possible. Obviously, for cost and all a lot. It's a conversion to a 5-bedder. Okay. So the first question on the ground floor, what I want to do is to convert that lounge into the sort of minimum 18 square meter lounge.
Yeah.
Sorry, lounge kitchen and all that, and then convert the existing kitchen to a bedroom.
Yeah.
Okay. The bedroom as it is now, the kitchen there is 6.7 square meters, which is just above the 6.51 minimum. Okay, but it's 1.88 square meters. If I assume that the estate agent's numbers are correct, it's 1.88 square meters wide. And my question is that wide enough for a bedroom?
Okay, so let me answer that one before we go on to the other one, because I think we need to keep these questions separate, otherwise it get confusing. So, right, as far as there's what's called the National Prescribed Space Standards, okay, which are standards that are used for sort of any new dwellings, etc.
Right.
And they have a minimum width for a bedroom.
Yeah.
So a single bedroom of 2.15 meters.
Sorry, say that again?
2.15 meters.
2.15 meters, right.
2.15. So basically, you need to measure that, because in reality, you know, if you were having to do it's a 6-bed, so you're not having to worry about a change of use or anything on this. But if you were having to go through from a planning point of view, they would apply those standards of that 2.15 minimum. So you'd have to have that width.
Okay.
Now, I mean, we, you know, from a mentoring point of view, we would always make sure that that would be the minimum sort of width. You know, I wouldn't be doing anything here without speaking to my HMO officer to see whether they would be sticking to that.
Right.
And I will be being very, very careful on the basis that even if the this HMO officer says yes, you could have somebody in the future that actually says that that isn't wide enough. I mean, I would always be trying to. So even if you were to extend, because one of the things you mentioned, you could actually take a bit of space out of the lounge, so you could go a little bit that way. Yeah. That's not going to make any difference to the length. And then from the width point of view, because when did you say this house was built? It's not an old one, is it?
No, it's not an old one. It's a new house. I don't know when it was built, but this is a new house.
Yeah. So what's going to be is you're not even going to be able to pinch anything out of this hallway here, because that will have probably been built to whatever year it was, the building regs for the purposes of how wide the corridor should be, and that would probably fit with approved document M for sort of potential disabled access. Which corridors will be wider than they would be in, or the requirement would be for them to be wider than they would be in an older dwelling, where you can get away with narrower hallways.
Okay.
So that might be a no-no, which means that your only other option, and I didn't get a chance to sort of draw this out for you, Olutunde, I'm afraid, is whether you can do a split down the middle here, so that you've got a bedroom on here, and then all of this size becomes your sort of communal area.
Right. Okay.
But obviously what you've got is you've got a double door. You're going to need to have your window in here and potentially the door out, or you split this and you just put a window in there rather than a door, but split it down the middle. But it depends. Now, what's the width of that? 3.89. So that's going to give you, that's probably going to be a bit tight actually, isn't it?
Yeah, it will be, isn't it? I think.
Yeah, because it'll be, if you do a division, you've got about 1.95.
Yeah.
So that's going to be too tight to do it. So it's,
Yeah. So this may not work, isn't it? For a 5
it might not work. You know,
Yeah.
I'd be going in and seeing, I'd be actually measuring this.
Yeah.
But it looks to me like that might not be possible.
Sorry, just diving in here, just looking at that, Olatundi, the one that we were just looking at,
Yes.
that the width of our one is 4.77. So if that's 4.89 wide,
No, it's 3.89, I
oh,
think.
3.89, is it? Oh, sorry. Okay, I was reading that.
Yeah.
3.89, sorry.
And that sort of mirrors because, you know, the bedroom upstairs, you know, give or take, I would be measuring this, but, you know, the bedroom upstairs, they've got on their standards of being 3.96. So it's not a wide house at all, really.
No, it's not. It's not. From the elevation, you can see it's not wide. I just thought it was wide, you know.
Okay, the other question that you had was regarding your ensuites, wasn't it? Ensuite and bathroom, because we might as well go through this because it's helped you for anything else that you're looking at. What was your question? What was your question there?
Yes, the question is can I split, because I was trying to create on the top floor, can I split that ensuite into two, separate onto two ensuites? Depending on the size, obviously, of that place, without creating any plumbing problems for the waste pipe or anything.
Right, okay. So I can't answer whether the ensuite you could split. I'm just looking at here, you're going to have to measure this.
Yeah.
But in theory, if you took into account that ensuite and the cupboard, even if you need to pinch a little bit of space here,
Yes.
out of the bedroom, you'd have enough space there for sort of two bathrooms, one way or another.
Yeah.
Now, what you'll have to do is to find out where the waste pipe is coming down. Okay, so it's going to come down because it's a newer property. It's going to be running probably either between the cavity, or it's likely to be between the cavity or somewhere inside. So you're going to need to have a look to see where it goes through. Let's just have a look and see if we've got.
Hey, can you go back to the picture?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. So
Yeah.
let's have a look. You know, there's nothing on the outside, so it's internal somewhere.
Yeah.
Let's just have a look and see. These pictures aren't very good. You can see this agent's a bit rubbish at taking pictures, aren't they? See, unless we can see where, you know, a soil pipe comes down in any of the pictures, and they've probably not taken them. Right, okay. So the nearest, I can't even see whether that's the soil pipe.
No, I can't.
Because it's boxed in here, so that's the most likely place, but I can't see in the picture. It doesn't look like that in the picture that it even runs down there.
Yeah.
Assuming that's the ensuite.
Yeah.
That's just the drain pipe. So it's going to be somewhere probably internally.
Yeah.
Ah, right. Unless that's gas pipe. So that is, let's see if that, let's just go back to the picture. So that's implying there. So that could be where it comes, it could come through in that corner there. Because that's where that sort of more or less corresponds to in there.
Yes.
So, you know, as long as you can get to the soil pipe, then, you know, if you're going a little bit this way, you're going a little bit that way, even if one of the pipes needs to run sort of at floor level, above the floor, again, joists, depending on which way the joists are going, possibly on this, given the size of it, I'd say sideways, which might make it more difficult.
Right.
But there's always the chance of then taking your soil pipe down below. Don't forget, this is a 3-story.
Yeah.
So wherever it's going from here, it's just going to be tacking all the way sort of through. But normally with these houses, there aren't any issues with actually getting to those soil pipes and actually, you know, working your soil into them, as long as you're keeping your bathrooms sort of within this vicinity. And I guess, you know, again, I can't go by you can't go by the pictures here.
Yeah.
But you know, if you probably be able to just take that across there, take
Yeah.
this across here, and between
Yeah.
the two. The problem that you got is you've got a window. So,
Okay.
and again, I'm not going to take the agent's plan of the window being in the right position.
Yeah.
So it might be that you have to have the window in one of the bedroom, you know, one of the en-suites. So it might mean, so say if we took it into the front one, it might mean that your en-suite might encroach to stay here.
Yeah.
Keep it
Yeah.
this side of your window,
Yeah.
and then this one
Yeah.
will just be built on that window line.
Yeah.
And a bit further
Right.
further down. But between those spaces there
Yeah.
shouldn't be any problems we're getting. If you want 3, you know, if you want 2 en-suites and a shared, there shouldn't
Right.
be any problem with that.
Yeah, so I can have 2 suites at the top floor and just leave that one at the in the middle floor as it is, a shared.
Okay, if that's the case, then you know that would be easier because
Yeah.
you've already got your window there in that ensuite,
Yeah.
and then you just might need to encroach a bit more in here. You know,
Yeah,
I don't think that cupboard is going to be quite that wide. That's a
Yeah.
very generous cupboard otherwise. So it's probably more like, so again, you just want to measure, you know,
Yeah.
measure what you've got there. You might be able to pinch a little bit of that ensuite to the window line.
Yeah.
Just to give yourself a little bit more space.
Yeah.
But this is going to be a problem bit.
Yes.
You know, I would be, you know, are you going to be able to, wrong one, let's just go back to the pictures, go back to the beginning here.
Mm.
That might be where it goes.
Yeah, yes. Possibly, yes.
So wherever the bath is, which is probably the shared bathroom. So
Yes,
it looks
that's a
like it's
shared
in
one.
that front corner.
Mm.
Just want to go back to the picture of the here, is
Yeah.
because the only other option, potential option
Yeah.
with this would be if you could put another window in the side. So if we go back to your, and you want to check with Massa on this one, because that's not showing actually, there's not showing a side window at ground
It's not
level,
showing,
is there?
yes. It's not.
So where's that?
It's not showing any window at all.
It's not showing a window there, is it? So I
Where's
don't know where
there?
that window, I'm guessing that is
Yeah.
in there.
It's there.
So if
yes.
there's a window, okay, so this gives us another option.
Yeah.
So, because if you have got a window there,
Yes.
could you then put a bedroom? So across here. Be a bit messy. So that this is your communal area. Because obviously, you know, if this is only 1.88, you've got to go to at least there, haven't you?
Okay.
And then come across, just give yourself your bedroom. It'll be a smaller bedroom size, and then the rest communal. It will be messy.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, because otherwise you're going across here. But I just think all of this width here is really precluding you from
Yeah.
doing what you need to do if you want to keep to the space standards.
Yeah.
Any thoughts, Andrew? Anything else?
Yeah, I was thinking about, I was thinking about going across the back as well, but you're going to have a very thin, long bedroom again, and it's
Yeah.
probably not going to make your communal area big enough. You might have to knock through to your kitchen.
And then it's access to your garden is outside, isn't it?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
this is not looking likely good enough, is it?
One thought on splitting windows, though, is quite. I don't know if I can do that. Can I show my screen?
Yeah.
If I stop sharing, I don't know whether you've got the ability to do it, but if I stop sharing,
Does it come up?
yes, got it.
Right. This actually here is one room,
Yeah,
and this is another room. So we actually split there's a wall that runs behind here, dividing the two rooms. So we split the windows, and by putting a blanking plate in and making it match, from the outside, you can't really tell anything different. But that's where the window fell 2/3, one in one room, one in the other. As long as you've got opening windows in both, you can split a window fairly easily like that.
Okay. Okay.
you just need your 10, you just need your 100 mil, don't you? Sort of slat in the middle to
Blanking
build
plate.
your, blanking
in.
plates, build your
Yeah, we did
wall
the
up.
same up the top as well. That's 2 bedrooms, again with a blanking plate.
Can we go back to the, give me back screen? Let's go back, let's just go back to
okay, what about if you split it?
Yeah, because it depends on here, and depends on how big. What I was just going to go do is go back to, because they're not big. See, this doesn't make sense, does it? Because there isn't one there. So
Are they not just false? Are they just false windows?
Yeah, so this might have been something from a planning point of view that they were insistent on, you know, that it looked like might be other architecture in the area that's like that. So if we look at that floor, you haven't actually got a window there anyway, so you can do what you want there. That doesn't make any difference. And then it depends on how big this window is, as to whether that's going to make that worthwhile, isn't it, to do the, you know, do a blanking down there. But you do have a window here, but I pretty tight. These quite narrow houses, aren't they?
Yeah.
I think, you know, go along, because if nothing else, this is good experience for you.
Okay.
Never believe what an estate agent has put on there as far as sizes are concerned. Yeah, absolutely. However, they tend to normally, you know, over egg rather than under egg, if that makes sense. So what I'm getting at here is, I think it's very unlikely that that's going to be 2.15. I think that's called wishful thinking is the answer. It's more likely that 1.88 is going to be sort of accurate. You know, go along with your tape measure, you know, measure it all. As I say, I don't think there's a window up on here, which makes things easier as far as that is concerned. Depends on the width of, you know, how wide the window is. Putting a banking plate in the middle to build your wall off, but you know, that is totally possible if it's wide enough. But this downstairs is your messy bit. If you just had that width there, you'd be great on doing what you wanted to do.
Yeah. Is there a chance? Okay, I know you said that entrance is already at the minimum, isn't it?
Yeah, it's likely. It's likely to be. It's likely it will be what building regs requirements were for the property when that was built, depending on how old it is. And you're not going to be making that narrower as a result of it, really. You know, we can get away with it on older properties because of the fact of you know, building regs were different when they were, you know, when they were built. But you know, again, measure it all, see what you've got, because just another thought here is what have you got here? You got a toilet. Is this a toilet?
Yes, I was thinking to do that as a shower for that ground floor bedroom.
Okay, because the only other thing I'm thinking here is if you really have got this width here, would be take all of this out. So that becomes your corridor. If you can then put your wall along here. Okay. You might be able to get away with that little bit just kicking in at the end of the bedroom, i.e. the most of that room is your 2.15 and you just got a little narrow bit at the back, and then putting en suite in the back here. If you can get you would be able to get your drainage because your drainage is there, so you should be okay. Maybe put an en suite here as a replacement for that. So that's the only way I can think of rescuing it.
Okay, so just take out that, and take out the that there, and then sort of widen that a bit.
Yeah, but you'll only be able to go up to just before your sort of stairs because you need your width. There as far as the stairs are concerned. So, you know, I'd be going with your measuring tape. But obviously we're, you know, I don't know how many of these are supported, whether they're supporting walls here. Yeah, it's a newer property, so it might be like Simon and Heather's, where they're often these townhouses have got nothing as far as supporting walls are concerned in the middle, apart from something around the stairwell. Everything else, you know, you could literally just take out and pop anything in that you wanted. So, you know, we don't know what the structure is there. Taking a builder along to sort of have a look at it, but that's the only other thing I can think of really there. Do you think that's possible, Andrew, from I think that's the only, it's still a, you know, I think, you know, it would be one that I'd be thinking very seriously about whether I wanted to do it or move on to the next one. That would be a bit easier and not so expensive.
Yeah, I mean, if you did put an ensuite at the back of the downstairs bedroom, you could always split the one on the first floor and have one bit as a shared bathroom and the other as an ensuite.
Yeah,
So the guy on the ground floor just has got one flight of stairs to the
Yeah.
bathroom. But yeah,
Keeps-
it's a tough
keeps-
one, isn't it?
yeah, it is. It's not. And what you got to remember is we're looking at a plan. And I'm always nervous when I'm just looking at plans, because Andrew and I, when we go out on refurb mentoring, we've sat there, we've looked at the plans, and you think, oh yeah, we'll be able to do this, we'll be able to do that. We get there and you think, oh, forget everything I've thought about. It's just not going to work, you know,
Yeah,
because of things that you actually can't say.
yeah.
All
Okay.
I
right.
think the state
Yes.
agents use rubber tape measures.
Mm.
Yeah.
Thank
Or
you.
one that centimeters are actually sort of smaller, you know, each centimeter is actually in our mind
Yeah.
sort of 0.8 of a
Oh.
centimeter.
Centimeters, I thought you meant inches.
Mm. Okay, thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay, I think that's everything, isn't it? So I think
Yes.
I've covered everybody's questions. So
Yeah.
we're not too far, we're only 11 minutes over, but I think we've covered quite a lot today.
Mm.
So I think if everybody's happy with where we are, then thank you very much for all your questions. I think it's been really interesting. Hopefully, if you haven't asked the question, it's not your question. You've actually learned something from what we've talked about from everybody else. So I wish you all good luck with your projects and
Yes.
look forward to seeing you all next time.
Quick question, please, before you go.
Oh, go on then.
So, for example, if I sort of see another house, can I still send questions in between refurb dates?
First port of call is your regional coach. Okay, so your regional coach should be able to help you with things like this.
Right.
And then if there are any problems and issues and they want to clarify something, then they'll come to us to do that. Okay.
All right.
So, but if it coincides with the next refurb clinic, by all means, as you've done with this one, pop your question through just
Yeah.
before it, and we'll cover it.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, brilliant.